Welcome to the Dean Obeidallah Show on Substack Live. It is Tuesday, February 3rd. Today, you are my guest. Today's segment is where it's up to you to give us all some answers and make us smarter. That's why I do it. And today is probably the most important topic we can have facing us between now and November 3rd, and that's how do we secure our election from Donald Trump? I don't want to say this election coming up in November is the most important election of our lives. First of all, that's cliche. And second of all, it's an understatement. This is not just the most important election of our lives. This is the most important election in the life of our democratic republic. I'm not exaggerating. We see what's going on. Trump's on the drumbeat to fascism. The checks and balances don't even apply to him. The court does whatever he wants. Supreme Court 90+% rules for him. Republicans in the House and Senate do nothing. Corruption, killing people, troops in the street, murdering Americans, and covering it up. All this and more. If Trump had 2 more years of this country will be unrecognizable. And Trump gets this election as it. Trump knows he loses the House and Senate, and at least the House, things change. He doesn't like that. For some bizarre reason, he's really freaked out at the idea of being impeached. I don't know why he brings that up. He brought it up a few weeks ago to Republicans in a House retreat. It really troubles him. The guy's been impeached twice, but it bothers him for another time. So we have to come up with ways to protect our election. And when I see we, it's because Democratic leaders have not yet focused on this, and we need them to begin focusing on this a lot more. There are 3 areas that Donald Trump will focus on, at least in my view. If you can think of others, let me know. Here are the 3. The 3 C's: casting ballots, counting ballots, certifying ballots. So it's casting ballots, election day or through the mail. 2, the counting of the ballots, getting involved with that. 3, certifying the ballot results. The reason I say this is because he attacked all of these in the lead up to 2020 election, and then, of course, after the election. So much of it was the idea of stop the count. Remember that? Stop the count. I'm winning. Stop counting. And then, of course, after the votes were counted, his war to end the certification in the battleground states, pressuring elected officials, pressuring county elected people who deal with the elections. And of course, that built to the big plan on January 6th, stopping the certification of Joe Biden's win. And plan B was a terrorist attack on the Capitol. So we know he's capable of doing the worst things imaginable to cheat in this election, and he's going to. We're already seeing what's going on. So look, here's the first part, the casting ballots. We already see Republicans right now dealing with this, and they're doing it in a legal way. And that they're trying to do legislation called the SAFE Act, which is Safeguard American Voter Eligibility. As experts note on voting, this SAFE Act, if passed, will silence millions of voters because of the new obstacles that they put into place of being able to vote. The SAFE Act, you'd have to show proof of citizenship. And most people's driver's license, unless they're a real ID, doesn't have it. So you would need more than a driver's license. You would need to go get your original birth certificate, wherever that might be, and bring your passport, but only 30% of Americans have passports. So the idea is to make it harder for people. The SAFE Act also will affect married women because their name doesn't, unless they've changed their name legally, what their name is on their ID might not match the birth certificate. In fact, it won't unless they've kept their maiden name. So again, it's to make it harder for people, lower income people, people who of color who or might have less passports or less other IDs, and women. When you take a step back, what the Republicans want, and it's long wanted, is to only allow white men to vote. That's what they want, only white men to vote. That's the plan, folks. SAFE Act is part of that. It really is a new poll tax. If you think about it, and that was during Jim Crow, they used a poll tax. You had to pay a fee to vote. Well, this is no different. If you don't have the ID you need, and you have to pay a fee to get it, which about 25 million people, they say, don't have it of adults, that means those 25 million have to pay for the right to vote. That's a poll tax. They know that. So you've got that part of it. The second part of how Trump will, and again, I'm doing the 3 buckets here. One is casting ballots. Second is counting ballots. Third is certifying ballots after the election is over. In addition, we can expect Donald Trump to use ICE and other federal agents at voting locations. That is part of this. I mean, Gavin Newsom and J.B. Pritzker have talked about that very point, that all of this is a dry run for the midterm elections. And by Trump's ICE abducting American citizens all over the place and holding them for hours, if not days, for days. Nazra Ahmed in Chicago, in Minnesota, U.S. citizen, naturalized. She grew up here. Somalia, they kept her for 2 days. She's a U.S. citizen. So what they'll do is, one is the intimidation factor. If you're of color, if you have mixed status immigration in your family, like you have to be a U.S. citizen to vote for Congress. We all know that. But their goal is that if you have people in your family that don't have a citizenship yet, or they're green card holders, or they're undocumented, you won't vote because you're fearful if they go there, they hold you, they follow you back home. And think about the intimidation, the other part of it. What if they just round up Americans? They go down the line. They know brown and black people tend to vote Democratic. White people tend to vote Republican. Obviously, there's exceptions, but those are kind of blanket thing. They just round up all the brown and black people voting in, say, Fulton County. Because if Democrats can't win Fulton County big, we can't win the state of Georgia. So they round up 500. They hold them for a day. Election day, they hold them for the entire day. They let them go at 8:05 p.m. when the polls close. That sounds outrageous. That's completely plausible. That's definitely what they're going to do. So again, that's one. I'm first going through what I believe they're going to do, and then proposals to address it. This is not just like, let's be afraid. It's like we've got to come up with proposals to address. And I have some ideas, and so start thinking. What are your suggestions? What are your ideas? We'll put it in the chat, and I'm going to read them in a few minutes. A few more things. Counting and certifying the ballot. Buckets 2 and 3. We already saw with last week Trump sending the FBI and Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, which deals with foreign issues, but they sent her to Fulton County. And it's no doubt she was sent. DOJ second in command, Todd Blanche, lied last week saying, oh, Tulsi Gabbard was just there. And the media's like, oh, wow, what a weird coincidence that Tulsi Gabbard, who works in D.C., just suddenly in Atlanta when they're doing a raid. That was bullshit. The shape of the corporate media that didn't ask a follow-up question like, isn't that a little weird? Like, why would Tulsi Gabbard be in Atlanta? She was not. The New York Times reported yesterday, and it's confirmed now, Trump sent her to Fulton County to go supervise the FBI because he doesn't even trust Kash Patel enough. He thinks Tulsi's probably smarter. So he sent personally Gabbard and coordinated with Andrew Bailey, one of the 2 deputy FBI directors. Behind the closed doors, Tulsi Gabbard gets on the phone, calls Trump, touching in with the boss, who speaks to the FBI agents on the speakerphone, tell them they're doing such a great job, and give them a pep talk. This was a Donald Trump operation. All of it. They took 700 boxes worth of ballots, tabulators, and the like. What they're doing with it, I have no idea. But the corporate media sheep who are like, wow, he's so obsessed with 2020. You're idiots. Shut up. He's not obsessed with 2020. This is not about the past. It's about the future. We all know this. Everyone watching knows this. Instinctively, we all know when Trump sent the FBI to Fulton County, it was not about the past. It was about the future. We get that. Corporate media will go, well, he really obsessed with 2020. Shut up. You're making it worse. So in any event, they are figuring out from what they're going to gather how to affect the counting and certification later. And it might be as simple as just saying, look at all the fraud we found. Don't trust the results in 2026. And that will go to the certification prong because they'll say to their base, see, it's all fraud. We told you it was fraud. So now you can't believe it when the Democrats say they won. And so it's a legitimate election. So you've got that. Then yesterday, what did Trump say? He goes on Dan Bongino's show and says that the GOP should take over voting in about 15 swing districts. Yep. He doesn't hide his plans. He said point blank, the Republicans should say, we want to take over. We should take over the voting in at least many. Then he adds 15 places, which someone must have told him 15 is important. The Republicans ought to nationalize the voting. Now, from a legal point of view, Article 1, Section 4 of the Constitution plainly states the times, place, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof. That's in the Constitution. It means nothing, but it's in the Constitution. As we've learned, the Constitution is a piece of paper. It's kind of fun to read. It's in Old English. That's interesting. Wow, what if the Supreme Court won't protect us? It won't save us. So forget the fact that the Constitution says only the state legislatures can run the elections. Meaningless. I can assure you, meaningless. We've got to think of ways to protect it, knowing the lower courts will save us. The Supreme Court will not. The Supreme Court will rule with Donald Trump like they've done in 90+% of the cases. There've been 25 cases appealed to them in the first year of Trump, and 20 they rule for Trump. They will rule for him again on this. They will say, well, the framers meant blah, 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 but what they really meant was this. So they're going to help him. So here's the thing. One quick aside, then we're going to get to what are your ideas to save our election. It's up to us. Okay, you and I have to save this. You got to pressure people to start saving it. What I find so aggravating is watching corporate media today or listening at the gym to the coverage on CNN and even MS Now, and I like the people there a great deal, talking about Trump's proposals to on the election, like the SAVE Act or nationalizing the election, without any talking of the history of Donald Trump. Donald Trump was convicted of 34 felonies for cheating in the 2016 election. That was not about sex for money. As Alvin Bragg, the DA, said point blank, Donald Trump was charged for, quote, conspiring to corrupt a presidential election and then lying in New York business records to cover it up. He was convicted of falsifying business records, but to cheat in 2016 to cover up the payoff he made to Stormy Daniels, the American voters didn't know about it. So the guy's a convicted election cheater. After 2020, what did he do? He engaged in 3 months or 2 months of nonstop lies. He had lawsuits that all failed, but then still his backup plan was stop the election certification on January 6th. And the backup plan to that was everyone come down to the Capitol. And I'm going to go and we're going to fight like hell. And we can't let this happen. And so we're going to go in there and we're going to stop the steal. The backup was the attack on the Capitol. How do you have a discussion about any of Trump's election proposals without saying that Donald Trump is a convicted election rigger, cheater, who attempted to overturn the 2020 election? The man attempted a coup. The man did not want to accept the loss of the election and then decided a terrorist attack on the Capitol, then praise the terrorists, and then pardon the terrorists. How? And I know shouldn't be about corporate media because we had to get to the real important issues, but I'm telling you, you can't count on the corporate media to do the right thing either. Here are my ideas. And please start thinking. You are my guest. So start thinking, what are your ideas? I'm going to read them for everybody. Whatever the ideas are. One, I think it's increasing awareness. We have to thank Trump for opening his big mouth yesterday because people have called my radio show and commented on my articles for months now. Will there be an election in 2026? What's Trump going to try to do to rig it? We've not heard Democrats talk about it much. Here and there, Pritzker and Newsom did, but most haven't. They focus on other issues, and I get it. But now we're within 10 months of the election. You got to start talking about it. So first, we need Democratic leaders, House, Senate, governors, AGs, to be screaming that Trump wants to cheat in 2026, just like he tried to cheat in 2020. That Trump's trying to do a coup 2.0. This is coup attempt 2.0. And talk about the guy who was convicted of cheating in the 2016 election by a jury who was charged with 4 felonies for trying to overturn the 2020 election is back at it again for 2026. You got to give context. You got to talk about he is trying to cheat and rig the election. He's trying to silence the vote of Americans. So I think it's so important that they do that. Second, for Democratic states, keep in mind, Trump wants to prevent one of the three. There's 3 buckets again. Casting ballots, counting ballots, certifying ballots. So casting ballots, what Democratic states can do right now, knowing that Trump is going to try to have ICE go to Democratic strongholds and intimidate voters, is expand the ability to vote by mail. Expand the ability to do absentee ballot. So people don't even have to go there on election day. You get the mail-in ballot, get it earlier, you send it in, and it's done. To me, that's so important. Let's avoid the confrontation. Let's avoid anyone thinking for a second, well, if I go there, what if ICE is there? What if CBP? What if they start harassing me? Nobody needs that bullshit. Make it easier to vote by mail. That's it. Also, and there's only a few states left, and I can't find the exact number now. In 2020, I saw there were 4 states left that didn't have any paper ballot. Any state that's blue state that doesn't have a paper ballot backup, you got to do that. But it might be all of them by now. But that's important. The second thing is the well. Here's another thing, and this is kind of daring for Democrats to do. Are you ready? Call for international election observers. That's right. Call for international election observers to be here during our voting. The same way, remember the late, great Jimmy Carter would go to other nations and the U.S. would go to other nations and observe their elections. You do that. We call for international election observers ourselves to give it some gravitas to it. And the UN, on their page on election observers, notes this: election observation is a valuable tool for improving the quality of elections. It helps build public confidence in the honesty of the electoral process, and it promote and protect the civil and political rights of participants. That's why you want election observers. Now, I know for Democrats to call for international help, it might be a bridge too far, but maybe we can start doing that. But House Democrats do have a power within the House. There is the House Representatives, the Election Observer Program. You can Google it, the Election Observer Program. This committee, the Government Affairs Administration Committee, the law says the chair or the ranking minority member, which is a Democrat, can send election observers to watch the congressional elections in any congressional election. Well, we should send our observers. And according to the law, it says they can be at the on-site polling locations where processing, scanning, tabulating, recounting, auditing, or certifying voting results are happening. So we need the Democratic members on this committee and in the House to talk about having these House election observers all over the country. Again, the greatest sunlight is the greatest disinfectant, is a famous line by, I believe it was Justice Brandeis. And you need them to know they're going to be watched. You need them to be the same way we are recording ICE thugs. We got to record the canvassing and the counting of the ballots, not the voting. You can't go in the booth. We get that. But the counting of the ballots. There should be no problem videotaping that, live streaming it, calling for full transparency so everyone can see what's going on the right and the left. So there is confidence. Now, if Republicans win, you won't hear a peep, right? That's what happened. But if Democrats win, and I believe we're going to win, they're going to claim it's fraud. So you're going to have the third part, which is preventing the certification of the ballots. And that's where the lawyers come in. You and I can't go to court. I mean, I'm a lawyer, but I'm not an election lawyer. We cannot go to court and litigate these things. We need the DNC, we need the Brennan Center, ACLU, the NAACP, all the legal arms. They're going to be ready. None of this is a surprise for them. They get what's coming. So the first two parts we can do, which is us elevating it, talking about it. Second, you can volunteer in many states, not all, to be an election observer yourself. You can volunteer through the Democratic Party, or you can contact the board of Borough Hall, City Hall, whatever you have, and ask them about doing that. So if you've got the time, you can observe it. And you can call attention to things that are inappropriate. So look, that's my spiel here. And again, I went longer than I wanted to. That went 20 minutes. I try to keep this to 15. Now, what I want to do, this whole segment, is you are my guest. It's the idea of reading. Think about it. What suggestions do you have? What do you think? Even if it's not been done before, it's even for the better. What can we do to protect? 1, casting the ballot. 2, counting the ballot. 3, certifying ballot results. Those are the 3 buckets. Because the fourth prong, we can't stop at all. Trump is also going to prevent the swearing in of Democrats who win their congressional election. That goes to certification. Once they're certified, they have to get sworn in. But there's a fourth prong that we have nothing to do with. That's going to be in the House. And again, that's up to us to yell about it in advance. But Trump will do anything and everything to keep the House and the Senate. You know it. I know it. Democratic leaders need to start speaking out. So let me go back here to the comments. I'm going to scroll up to some arbitrary place, as I always say, and see the ideas people have. Any ideas you have, because I'm going to write them down. I'm writing an article. I'm going to share ideas that people have shared here. And then on my radio show tonight, I'll talk about this very issue and combine that with other thoughts that people have. Let's see. We're going to go up here middle. And Cher says Florida's made mail-in more difficult. They have. Donald Trump just in August called for no mail-in ballots. Why no mail-in ballots? Because he wants to be able to intimidate voters at the polling place. That's why. Mail-in ballot are completely fine. There are states that do it. Colorado, Washington State. Exact. Gloria Jesus. Washington State is mail-in only. Absolutely. Cheryl says, I'm worried about who handles the mail. Yes, we all are. That's a very good concern. Carol says we have a paper ballots here in Wisconsin. Just about every state now has a paper ballot, even if it's scanned. Like I live in New York. We go to vote, we fill out the ballot, then we put it into a machine which scans it and tabulates it. But there's always that paper there to do a recount. And that's what we need. And that's good for everybody, left and right. That gives everybody confidence that you can do a recount. All right, let's see what's more. Oregon's mail-in ballot. Alyssa says absolutely. Yep. Allen, Dr. Allen. I call him. No, you're from Maryland. I made him a doc. Sorry, Alan. Every day I say you're a doctor. Alan B. from Maryland, not Dr. Allen. But if you want, I'll call you Dr. Allen if you prefer that. So we'll call him Dr. Allen. He says, when voting by mail, photocopy your ballot before mailing it. That's a very good idea. In today's day and age, you can just take a picture on your phone. Not most people. Most people don't have photocopiers anymore. Take a picture on your phone of your ballot and you keep it there for whatever it's worth. I mean, you might as well have it, right? It doesn't hurt. The Bar Nation Station, I hope Brad Raffensperger is included in what happened in Georgia. I'm not sure. I mean, he's running for governor now. I'm not positive. B-Mouse says, yes, international election oversight. I think it's important. I think even let Republicans say no. Let Republicans, a lot of times they say things just so Democrats say no. Let Republicans say they don't want international election observers. That's a tough thing to say no to. They can go like, well, UN, blah, blah, blah. Let them say we want no election observers. Everything's fine. No, Donald Trump's saying it's all rigged and it's all fraud. We need international election observers from the UN, from our NATO allies, countries that are Western democracies. You can have their judges, their election officials come to America. They can monitor the election. If there's problems, they could be there in the room. There's ways to preserve our democracy. So let's continue on here. Karen Wilson says, yes, we need observers. Ruth says, I love that. How is that done? Election observers. I was doing research. Only 5 states even mention international election observers, and 1 or 2 ban it. The most states have no position on it. So look, it's up to the state. I mean, I read to you the first part of Article 1 of the Constitution. Each state legislature can make a decision. If a state says we don't want, if there's nothing on it, then their board of elections will probably make the decision based on the statutes they have now. But there's nothing to say you can't have election observers. International election observers. Let's see, we've got here, Carrie Maxwell, voter ID is a poll tax. I've said that before. It is, even though I saw 70% of Democrats support a voter ID with a photo. Look, I have no problem with a voter ID with a photo if it's free for every American and it will be supplied for every American and it doesn't go into effect for like a year or 2 from now where people have time to get it. That's a different thing. The Republicans want it to go in effect in November. They're going to be very happy that you don't know where your birth certificate is, so you can't prove your citizenship. And by the way, you might be thinking, well, I'm already registered to vote. Well, if you move, you have to re-register, and the SAFE Act is in effect. You got to show proof of citizenship. Do you have that? Now, some do, but some don't. Only 30% have passports. The rest of you, go get your original passport, your original certified passport. Do you know where that is? Some do. I bet you a lot don't. I bet you don't even live in the same state where you were actually born. You're going to have to go back to that state, get on the phone, get mail, try to get it certified, pay a fee. Again, there's the poll tax component. Now, Vote Riders is a great organization, helps that, and they don't take a penny from you. And I've had Catherine Unger on my show. We're going to have her on again. Vote Riders, VOTE Riders, RIDERS. Great organization. I can't recommend it enough. Susan Callahan, another awesome idea, Dean. I just like the compliment. I'm not even sure what idea that was for, but thank you, Susan. I'm very needy. Joan says, Jen, that's a great idea. What did Jen say? Jen Champion says, so I looked up the contact information for my local AG, DA, governor, mayor. I'm going to call them and ask them, what is their plan for keeping us safe at election times? And I'll mention the international observers. Very good, Jen. Very good. I applaud that idea. All of us can play a role in this. This is something where you can volunteer to observe. But I think more importantly right now is screaming about Trump wants to steal the election. Keep talking about so whatever he does, the media goes, he's trying to steal the election. Look, he's trying to rig the election again. Look and fight back on their lies. Like, oh, Democrats brought in 10 million people to vote. If you're not a U.S. citizen, you can't vote. So you're telling me undocumented immigrants came here and now they have certified birth certificates that show they're born in the U.S.? No, they don't, because they're not born in the U.S. They don't have passports. They're not citizens. That's all bullshit. So we got to push back on the garbage and talk about Trump wants to cheat. Trump has called for canceling the election twice in just the last few months. That's not over yet. Let's continue it on. BMAL says you can drop off your early ballot directly to your Board of Elections. If you're concerned about putting your ballot in the mail, understandable, go to your election facility. Some places have drop boxes, but again, if you have a concern about that, go take the extra time, go to your city, if it's in the borough hall, city hall, they have it, or the county election facilities. Let's see here. Jane Daniels, longer hours and more days to vote and more precincts. That's very important. If you do have more days to vote, it makes it harder for Trump to send ICE everywhere. There's not enough ICE agents to send them to every battleground state. The only way Trump can do that is making ICE continue to do horrible things to U.S. citizens, where it has a chilling effect, where people self-censor and they go, I'm just not going to the voting place. I don't know what's going to happen. I might get arrested. I have a family member who's got a green card. They might come after that person. I have an uncle who's undocumented. Might come after that person. That's part of it. But the only way Trump can really have armed thugs at voting places around the nation is to invoke the Insurrection Act and call out the military or federalized National Guard troops. You might see that as we get closer to the election. The only thing we can do is go to the courts right away. The lawyers are ready. They've been making those arguments in Chicago and Portland already to the court. So it's not a unique argument. It's one that's been going pretty good. They won it in Chicago. So let's continue on here. Got a few more. Joseph Bremer, we have to find people that are 2 steps ahead of whatever maneuver he tries to pull. And they everything they need to block these attempts. Foreign government officials, don't believe will try to rig the election in favor of Democrats because Trump and the Republicans are easier to manipulate. Well, I'm hoping foreign governments, Russia and China, Russia just wants to destabilize America, right? They're not, do they like Trump more? Maybe, but they want to destabilize us. That's what their big thing is. Lori Mack, how will we protect those waiting in line to vote? We will need a protection force of sorts to be sure American citizen voters standing in line aren't pulled out to verify their citizenship and kept long enough until voting locations close. Absolutely right, Lori. That is something I'm very concerned about. And local police can play a role. They can protect citizens. There could be, that's why my other part is the idea of making it easier for mail-in ballots. If you're a blue state with a blue legislature and a blue governor, which are patriots, blue is patriots, make it easier now. You have plenty of time, pass laws now to make it mail-in ballots for anyone who wants it, absentee ballots for anyone who wants it, same thing. Send it in. You don't have to go and wait online. You don't have to worry about ICE or Trump's thugs, because that's going to be in the back of people's minds. And I fear some will be dissuaded from voting on their own and say, it's just not worth it. I don't want to go. I don't want to go through it. I have a criminal record, let's say, whatever it might be. They don't want to go through it. We have to make it easier. So we have to work around it, knowing what they're going to do by preemptively making it easier for people not to go there and still cast a ballot. Wherever we can do that. Let's see some more things here. Magna Animus says, is the DNC up to the task? I don't think DNC alone is up to the task, but I do believe with organizations like the NAACP, the Brennan Center, the Center for Constitutional Rights, Norm Eisen, Mark Elias's Democracy Docket, and others, they are going to be ready for this. There's going to be a massive they can raise tons of funds in advance for this, and they are legally ready for all this. Deborah Russell, mail-in ballots make it difficult for Trump and cohorts to rig. It's very true. And because you have paper ballots, they've come in, it's not all computerized. Elon Musk, and AI, we don't know what he'll try to do in 2026. And the biggest problem is in 2024, so many of us had questions about, did Trump cheat? Did Elon Musk cheat? We weren't saying like Trump did after 2020. People had ballots and they were in a suitcase. We had legitimate questions. Was the election up and fair and full and free? Trump wins all battleground states. The problem is no Democratic leaders call for a recount. They didn't call for audits. So we don't know what they may have found. And whatever they may have found may have helped us prepare for this. So we can't go back in time, but that's one of the frustrations of what happened in 2024. More things here. Judy, should we worry about fuckery in the primary election, I think they are test runs for the general. So you do have to worry about it. We'll see what happens. The first primaries are coming up soon. I mean, there's a special election on 2 days from now in New Jersey for Congress. I don't think they'll get involved there. The Democrats should be winning that one. But I do think in certain primary battles, if Republicans want a certain Democrat to win because they think that person is easier to beat, you might see some. So we should be on guard. They're starting robustly. I believe Illinois is March. So a lot going on that we have to get. So Chris Sampson, make sure people know all of the follow-up requirements if they've cast a provisional ballot. So yes, if you cast a provisional ballot, make sure you know how to get your ballot to go from provisional to actually being counted. Depending where you are in the state, it could be you didn't have the ID with you needed. Something was missing. You've got to come back. You've got to know your rights to make sure those ballots counted. Again, the 2026 election is not the most important election in our lives. It's the most important election in the life of this republic. That's how important it is. This republic. If Trump wins 2 more years, they will pass laws to give Republicans a permanent majority on the federal level. Very similar to what Viktor Orban's done in Hungary, where local elections are still somewhat valid elections and they lose. But nationally, on the federal level, they win every election. That's what Republicans want. And they will infringe more and more on states' rights, ironically enough, where they can legislate from D.C. imposing things like women will no longer have the right to control their own destiny. Women can't even vote. Discrimination against minorities, whatever they want. Gutting programs that help people, even on state level. They'll do it from the federal government, and no one will be able to push back. And of course, they'll have every court seat. Think about if Trump gets the Senate for 2 more years, how many more MAGA Trump judges will be on the bench? And they're with us as a legacy. All right, we'll do a few more, and let's see. Let me read a few more here. Gail said, spread the word that mail-in ballots are for everyone. Yep. Juan says, Oregon, mail-in. Yep. Bonnie, Oregon is mail-in too. Yes, very true. Jules Verne says, Democrats abroad could call for international observers and they will know lawyers from the Hague and London. That's possible. But I think it's up to Democrats. If they're going to call for international observers, which I think is really important thing to do, they can suggest where they're from. It could be from the UN. There could be people who've worked on other elections in other countries and everything went nice and smooth. I just want Republicans to know people are watching, that they will be prosecuted in the states, not in the federal government because Trump won't prosecute them, on the state level. The drop-off mail-in ballots, let's see, we'll do a few more. Let me go down to, wow, a lot of comments. These are a lot of great comments. Wow. That's a lot of comments. All right, let me go back a little bit. We'll do this for a little bit, 5 more minutes. It's longer than usual. Smatter says, so let's see, Crocker. Jesse, vote early at your county board of elections. Get involved and volunteer through your county board of elections. Jesse, good idea. Karen, hope people will need to mail in their ballots very early. Mail them in early or drop them off in person at City Hall, Borough Hall, or your county election place. That's even better. I think it's better. Dr. Sherry Crocker said they've changed the mailing system. I'm not sure where. It's state by state, but I missed something there. Jen says, did you see Katie Fang about the 85-second the midnight doomsday clock on YouTube? I have not seen it. Kirby says, Musk helped rigged it. They didn't want Kamala's DOJ to open the Trumpenstein shit. Yeah, I think all of us believe Elon Musk played a role in cheating in 2024, but we have no proof and no evidence because nobody did the audits and the recounts that we needed to find stuff. There you go. Let's see. Welcome, Kara, who just joined now, and Beth, who just joined now. Karen, if we can show up to protest, we can show up to vote. Numbers too big to rig, very much so. Joan, we will be over if we don't take the midterms. I can't, I'm telling you, this midterm, and I wrote about it 2 weeks ago, is the Battle of Gettysburg. That was the pivotal battle in the Civil War, the Battle of Gettysburg. The Robert E. Lee was going up. They had a bunch of victories. If they won at Gettysburg, they were just a couple days march to taking Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., even New York. And that turning point battle, 3-day battle in July that went on 1863, massive battle. If we lost that, the South gets recognized as a nation by even some of our allies. That's what they thought. And that there was been pressure to reach a negotiated settlement to let the Confederacy live. So this is our Battle of Gettysburg. It's that important to our republic. We don't want this to be a white supremacist nation, and those are the laws. Let's see a few more. Lady historian, we should be embarrassed that our election needs international monitors. Well, it's not embarrassed. We are ruled right now by a convicted felon who attempted a coup and incited a terrorist attack, a man who should be in prison, who should spend his last days in prison of his life, and a Republican Party that has now emboldened everything. To me, international observers are more as a threat to make Republicans say, no, we don't need it. And then maybe the back, the negotiating point is that, okay, more domestic observers. We need observers. We need everything. We have to think out of the box, my friends. This Republican end here. I do a few more. Cheryl Beck Ruff says, what if the speaker refuses to swear people in? The speaker doesn't get elected until a new Congress, so whoever has the most seats then gets the vote for the speaker. What's going to happen is I can see Trump litigating a bunch of Democratic victories so that the results are not in, whether they can be sworn in or not. And then it could be a Republican speaker. So that is part of it. And that's litigation. If the election is decided by 2 or 3 seats and we win the House by only 3 seats, Trump will do anything, including inspire another terrorist attack on the Capitol to prevent Democrats from being sworn in. There's no doubt about it. That's why you have to win by bigger than 3 or 4. Let's see a few more here. Suo says Election Truth Alliance has statistics on the results which show obvious red flags that should prompt hand recounts. I have no doubt. And Gwenny says we are in a constitutional crisis. We are in an existential crisis. We're not just in a constitutional crisis. We are in an existential crisis. This is the life of our republic is on the line. The Constitution right now does not protect us from anything. The Supreme Court is corrupt. This election is our last stand. If they win this election after this in 2 years from now, in 2028, only white men who own property are going to be able to vote. We're going to go back to the origins of this country. All right, a few more here. Gail, can we sue Trump and J Department for attempting to take over state elections? And yes, there will be. AGs will sue everywhere. That's a given. Democratic AGs, to 23 of them, have been suing nonstop all the time. So there will be lawsuits. There's no doubt about it. And Alan B., Dr. Allen, if MAGA wins, we lose. We're done after that. It's pretty close. That's true. That's why we have to win. That's why we have to prepare now for the election. We need to be able to cast the ballot, count the ballot, and certify the winner. Those are the 3 things we need. And then the 4th is swearing in the winner. But if we certified enough election results and we win by 15 or 20 seats, there's nothing they can do. If we win by 1 or 2, I'm going to be very, very worried. So I want to thank everybody tuning in. This was a great, you are my guest. A lot of great comments here. What we have to do, the people are ready to fight. I can tell. This is what we're about. It's up to us. The burden falls on us. Many generations have sacrificed for our republic to continue. Now it is called upon our generation, and it's not a generation defined by age. It's one defined by values. Do you believe in this republic? Do you believe in self-determination? Do you believe in a pluralistic democracy? If you do, that's the generation we're in. It's not about if you're 18 or 98. It's about a generation defined by values. It's a new generation. It's not one by age. It's by values. That's what I think we really are. So we are part of this generation that are going to stand up and save this nation. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for liking the chat. I really appreciate it. I'm going to put this as an article later today with what I said. I'll share it. I hope if you like it, you'll share it with your friends. I'd love more people to join the conversations whenever tomorrow I'm not doing one because I'm going to be on 2 Substack Lives, one with Glenn Kirshner at 3:00, and one with Lincoln Square at noon. I hope you'll watch them, but I'll just be a guest on one and interviewing Glenn on the other. And Thursday, I'm doing one Joy Reid. So maybe Friday will be the next You Are My Guest. But I really enjoyed the You Are My Guest. I enjoyed chatting with people, seeing your comments and your thoughts. So thanks very much for joining. Have a great day. And remember, if you want democracy, stay active. It's all on us.